What if the reason they pull away is the same reason they secretly hope you'll stay? Love is not always loud. Sometimes, it whispers from a distance, hides behind silence, and watches you from the corners of its guarded heart. I once loved someone like that, someone whose soul felt like a locked garden. Beautiful, peaceful, but carefully protected. The more I tried to run toward them, the more they stepped back, as if closeness was a storm they feared would sweep them away. At first, I thought love meant proving, convincing, chasing. So I spoke faster, texted longer, tried harder. But they grew quieter. Their replies became shorter. Their pauses became longer. And one night, staring at their unread message, I realized something. I had been speaking the language of pursuit, while their heart only understood the language of peace. So I changed the way I loved them. Instead of asking, "Why don't you open up?" I began saying, "Take your time. I'm here." Instead of demanding reassurance, I offered calm presence. I stopped trying to pull them closer and simply created a space where closeness felt safe. And something magical happened. The distance between us didn't vanish overnight, but it softened. Avoidant hearts are not cold hearts. They are careful hearts. They don't run because they don't feel. They run because they feel too deeply and don't trust the ground beneath those feelings. When you speak to them gently, when your words don't corner them but comfort them, they begin to breathe differently around you. I remember the first time they reached for my hand without hesitation. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cinematic. It was quiet, but that quiet moment thundered louder than any love confession I had ever heard. Because I knew, they chose that closeness on their own. You see, when you talk to someone who fears intimacy, your tone becomes your truth. If your voice carries pressure, they hear danger. If your words carry patience, they hear safety. And safety is the secret door to an avoidant soul. Love them like the ocean loves the shore, never forcing, always returning. Speak like the night sky speaks to the stars, giving space, yet holding everything together. When you master this kind of love, they don't feel trapped, they feel understood. And once an avoidant person feels understood, they don't run. Loving an avoidant heart is like reading a love letter written in invisible ink. At first glance, it seems blank, distant, almost emotionless. But when you hold it gently to the warmth of patience, hidden words begin to appear. Their silence is not emptiness, it is a language. A quiet dialect shaped by past storms, by moments when closeness once felt like danger instead of comfort. To understand them, you must listen not only to what they say, but to what they hesitate to say. When they pause before replying, it is not always disinterest. Sometimes it is calculation, measuring whether their feelings are safe to reveal. When they change the subject after a deep question, it is not always avoidance of you, but protection of themselves. Their heart speaks in subtle signals, a softer tone, a slightly longer gaze, a message they rewrite 3 times before sending. These are their love confessions, whispered instead of declared. I remember watching someone like this sit across from me, fingers wrapped around a cup of coffee as if it were armor. They smiled, but it was the kind of smile that stood at a distance. Anyone else might have mistaken it for indifference, but I saw the truth hidden underneath, the way their eyes lingered when they thought I wasn't looking, the way their voice steadied when I spoke gently. Their affection didn't rush forward, it tiptoed, cautious and observant. Avoidants often love like the moon loves the earth. Always present, yet rarely close enough to touch. They show care in indirect ways, remembering small details you forgot you mentioned, helping you quietly, standing beside you when you need support but never announcing it. Their love is not loud fireworks, it is candlelight, steady and intentional. To understand their silent language, you must become fluent in patience. You must learn to hear meaning in pauses, sincerity in restraint, devotion in subtlety. Because beneath their calm surface lives an ocean of feeling, and every gentle word you speak becomes a bridge across their guarded waters, every moment you respect their space becomes proof that closeness does not have to cost them their freedom. There is a delicate art to loving someone who fears being pursued, a rhythm that feels less like running and more like floating side by side. Speaking without chasing is not silence, and it is not withdrawal. It is presence without pressure, affection without urgency, interest without insistence. It is the kind of communication that feels like an open window instead of a locked door. Avoidant hearts are sensitive to pursuit the way a deer is sensitive to sudden movement. The faster you step forward, the faster they step back, not because they don't want you near, but because their instincts whisper that closeness might steal their air. I once learned this lesson the hard way. I used to send long paragraphs explaining my feelings, hoping depth would bring us closer. But every message I sent felt like a weight placed in their hands, something they didn't know how to hold. Their replies grew shorter, their tone more careful, their presence more distant. It wasn't rejection, it was overwhelm dressed as silence. And when I finally stopped chasing replies and started offering calm words without expectation, their responses slowly began to breathe again. Speaking without chasing means choosing words that invite instead of demand. It sounds like, "I enjoy talking to you," rather than, "Why didn't you reply?" It feels like warmth instead of interrogation. Your voice becomes a safe place rather than a spotlight. Avoidants are drawn to emotional spaces where they can step closer at their own pace, where they don't feel observed or evaluated every second. When they sense that your affection isn't a trap, their guard lowers inch by inch. It is a strange paradox of love. The less you try to pull them in, the more they drift toward you. They begin to initiate conversations, to linger longer, to reveal small pieces of themselves like petals slowly unfolding in morning light. Your restraint becomes attractive because it signals strength, self-assurance, and trust. It tells them you are not trying to capture their heart, you are simply offering yours. And in that gentle offering, they feel something rare and magnetic, a connection that does not chase them down but quietly waits, steady as a heartbeat, soft as a promise left in the air. Loving an avoidant soul means understanding that their heart is not a battlefield to conquer, but a sanctuary to be welcomed into. Safety, for them, is not a luxury, it is a necessity, the quiet condition their emotions require before they dare to bloom. Pressure, even when wrapped in affection, can feel to them like a storm knocking at their windows. They do not fear love itself, they fear losing themselves inside it. And so the secret is not to prove your love loudly, but to create an atmosphere where love feels gentle enough to stay. I once sat beside someone whose silence spoke louder than any confession. We watched the sunset without touching, without dramatic words, without urgency. The air between us was calm, unforced. And in that calm, I noticed something shift. Their shoulders relaxed, their breathing slowed, they leaned slightly closer, not because I asked them to, but because nothing in my presence demanded that they move. That moment taught me that safety is built in stillness, not insistence. When you remove pressure, you remove fear. Avoidants listen closely for emotional weight in your tone, for hidden expectations behind your kindness. If they sense that your affection comes with requirements, constant replies, immediate vulnerability, endless reassurance, their instincts begin to retreat. But when your love feels like open space, they begin to trust it. They notice that you don't punish their quiet moments, that you don't question their need for solitude, that your warmth remains steady instead of turning cold when they step back to breathe. Safety is also created through consistency. Not intensity, not grand gestures, but reliability. The gentle good morning message that asks for nothing. The patient listening that interrupts nothing. The understanding smile that explains nothing yet comforts everything. These small acts become proof that your presence is not a test they must pass, but a place they can rest. Avoidant hearts soften in environments where emotions are offered, not imposed. Where honesty is spoken softly. Where closeness is invited, not rushed. And as they begin to feel that your love does not demand pieces of them they are not ready to give, their walls no longer feel necessary, their defenses no longer feel urgent, their distance no longer feels like protection. To love someone who fears closeness is to walk a delicate line between devotion and self-respect, between tenderness and inner strength. Many people believe that loving deeply means giving endlessly, bending endlessly, waiting endlessly. But with an avoidant heart, love is not proven by how much of yourself you surrender. It is proven by how gently you hold them while still holding on to your own soul. Because if you disappear in the process of loving them, the love itself begins to lose its balance. I once believed that if I just loved harder, they would feel safer. I thought that sacrificing my needs would make them stay, that silence about my feelings would make them comfortable. So I became softer, quieter, smaller. I ignored the moments I wanted reassurance. I swallowed the words I longed to say. I told myself patience meant self-erasure. And for a while, it seemed peaceful. But inside, something began to fade, like a candle slowly losing its flame. Avoidant hearts do not need someone who abandons themselves for love. In truth, they trust more deeply when they see that you are whole on your own. Your independence reassures them. Your self-respect comforts them. When they sense that your happiness does not depend entirely on their presence, they stop fearing that your love will trap them. They begin to see you not as a weight on their freedom, but as a companion walking beside them. Loving without losing yourself means speaking honestly without accusation, setting boundaries without anger, and giving affection without expectation. It is the quiet confidence of knowing that you are choosing them, not clinging to them. When you carry yourself with that calm certainty, your love feels safe rather than consuming. They notice that you don't collapse when they need space, that you don't chase when they grow quiet, that your world continues to turn even when they step back for a moment. And strangely, this strength draws them closer. Not because you demanded it, not because you persuaded it, but because your wholeness becomes magnetic. Your presence feels like a calm shore rather than a crashing wave. They begin to approach not out of obligation, not out of guilt, but out of genuine desire, feeling that loving you does not require them to disappear, and that being close to you does not mean losing themselves in the process. There is a moment, almost invisible to the world, when an avoidant heart decides to step closer. It doesn't arrive with grand confessions or dramatic gestures. It arrives quietly, like dawn replacing night while no one is watching. If you are not paying attention, you might miss it. But if you have loved them patiently, spoken gently, and held your ground with calm strength, you will feel it, the subtle shift, the soft surrender, the silent yes hidden inside their eyes. I remember the first time it happened. We were sitting together, not speaking, letting the silence rest between us like a shared secret. In the past, they would have filled that silence with distance, glancing at their phone, finding a reason to step away. But this time, they stayed. Their shoulder brushed mine, lightly at first, as if testing whether closeness would still feel safe. I didn't react. I didn't move closer. I simply stayed present, steady as a quiet song. And then, slowly, they leaned in. When an avoidant person leans in, it is not impulsive. It is a decision made after countless inner debates, after fears have argued and hope has whispered back. It means they have been watching you carefully, noticing that you didn't rush them, that you didn't punish their distance, that your warmth never turned into pressure. That lean is their trust speaking without words. They may not announce it. They may not even realize it themselves at first. It might show up as a longer conversation than usual, a message sent first, a question about your day, or a moment when they let their guard drop just long enough for you to glimpse the softness they usually hide. To others, it looks small. To them, it is enormous. It is the emotional equivalent of opening a door they once swore would stay locked forever. And in that fragile, beautiful instant, your role is not to rush forward in celebration. It is to remain calm, to receive their closeness the way the earth receives sunlight, naturally, without grasping. Because this is the moment they discover something rare and life-changing, that intimacy can feel peaceful, that love can feel safe, that being close to you does not feel like falling, but like finally learning how to rest in someone's presence, trusting that they will be met with warmth, understanding, and a quiet kind of devotion that asks for nothing yet offers everything.